Well, it's not overstating things to say that Week 2's game against Texas Tech and Lubbock, Oregon's college football playoff hopes this year are going to be on the line. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review wherever you listen to or watch this show. Very special guest today, Chris Level, part of the Texas Tech broadcast crew on Learfield over there in Lubbock to give us insider information on everything we need to know about the Red Raiders. We'll talk about what's on the line, what to expect, and our good old buddy pal, Tyler Shough, who is not that divisive, but is also not divisive, because that all makes sense. But Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. And I know Oregon fans are excited to hear from you. But first thing I want to ask you is kind of what's on the line for Texas Tech, because as I look at Oregon's schedule this season, the Texas Tech game, I think, is not going to decide whether or not Oregon can win the Pac-12, go to the Rose Bowl maybe, but will decide whether or not they go to the playoff. Because if you lose this game, which Oregon can absolutely do, by the way, it is not going to be easy, as I'm sure Chris feels as well. If you lose this game, in order to get to a 14 playoff, Oregon would then have to go unbeaten in conference play and win the conference championship. I think that's asking a little bit too much. And so if they want to have a realistic shot at the playoff, I think they have to go down and get a win in Lubbock. But what's going to be kind of on the line for the Red Raiders as the Ducks come to town?
Well, first of all, Spencer, I appreciate you having me on. It's fun to talk to a fellow Locked On colleague as well. I know you have many other duties, but so do I. This has been a series, a game that I think a lot of people have just looked forward to, because one, we don't get a lot of these kinds of games in college football space. You know, this is, for basketball, fairly normal. Everybody plays everybody in November and December, and not many people really pay attention. But for football, it's fun to have just a true home and home that is, you know, somewhat meaningful. And I think this is a game. It's going to be played the same day that Alabama and Texas is going to be played on, but this is going to be one of on the short list of games that are nationally relevant. And if Tech can be, I know Oregon has kind of a fairly easy, manageable first game. Tech's first game is against Wyoming in Laramie, bit tricky. But if both teams are 1-0, I think that we would expect this game to be very meaningful and nationally relevant. And you're right, it doesn't have anything to do with the Pac-12 or the Big 12 championships or anything like that. But what's on the line, to me, at least here, and it may be for Oregon too, is perception. It's like, okay, are they you know, pretender, or is this contender type stuff? You know, some people will be looking to kind of like take a team off of the list, or man, maybe they got to hype too much in the offseason, whatever, or not ready for prime time. I don't know, phrase it however you want, but that's really what I see. And I think that, like, the Tech fan around here, or the team, has to be careful, because if you drop the game to Oregon, all is not lost. You're just coming off of an 8-win season. There's a lot of hype around your program, but you still have it all in front of you on what you want to try to attain. Now, if Oregon has national championship aspirations, yeah, it's hard to have any sort of blip on the radar and then still survive it all, because you just leave yourself with no margin for error. But to me, this game is about perception and, like, who can we take seriously? And it's not really fair to, like, discount a team or, like, say, hey man, we're not gonna count you in anything when it's basically going to be September the 10th or 9th. But that's kind of the sport, because the playoffs have not expanded, and you know, certain leagues get benefit of the doubt if they have one or two losses compared to maybe the Pac-12 or the Big 12. I don't know.
Well, I think as well, it's been consistent. We haven't yet seen a 2-loss team make it into the college football playoff. So I don't expect that to change, you know, going into this final iteration of the 14 playoff. And I think that is, you know, overall good for the sport. that you can only lose once and still be able to get in, because I just think that adds a level of urgency to the regular season that you just can't get in any other sport. It's why I oppose the 12-team playoff on a personal note. But I like what you said about the statement component that is available really to both of these teams, because Texas Tech is entering year 2 under Joey McGuire off an 8-5 season, beat an SEC team in a bowl game, by all accounts a successful year. Oregon had a successful-ish year at 10-3, but lost to both their rivals, crumbled down the stretch when they were in position to get into the playoff. If they controlled their own destiny to get into the playoff, they weren't able to finish the job there. But if they go into Texas Tech in the way that I'll be seeing it, and the way everyone should see it, is if Oregon walks out with a 14-17 point victory, that will kind of raise the awareness level of, okay, this could be something. This could be a team that could get through a really difficult and deep Pac-12 and get into the playoff at some point in time. Whereas on the Texas Tech side of things, if you beat a team like Oregon that is coming off a 10-win season, that has the brand that Oregon does, for the Red Raiders, that is kind of a sign to everybody else in the Big 12, hey, you can't ignore us anymore. We're here, and we're here to be a team that you don't have to just avoid a stumble against, but that is going to work to contend for a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's funny because I think the Red Raiders last year, at one point they were 4-5, but then they never lost. And I think that their season last year was viewed differently because they finished with a 4-game winning streak. Also because you beat Texas and Oklahoma, which is typically those are the programs that have done so well in this league for the most part.
They've done okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And because you won that bowl game against an Ole Miss team that was ranked in the top 10, about 10, about 2 weeks prior or 4 weeks prior, something like that, toward the end of the regular season, and you handled them. And I think that there's a lot of momentum there because of the way you finished and because of who you beat. There's different 10-3s, there's different 8-5s, there's different, because if you'd have started out,
you are not what your record says you are, Chris. I am a Josh Pate fan in that sense. You are not what your record says you are. Not now, not ever.
Yeah, because if you start out 8-1 and finish 8-5, we may be having a bit of a different conversation here than if you're 4-5 and finish 8-5. It's just kind of the way it goes. But I think this is a fun game. I think it's fun that Texas Tech's coming up to Oregon next year, and assuming that game is still scheduled and we're not conference mates or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole different.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
That's right. But yeah, this will be I will tell you, for the Oregon fan that may be paying attention, and some of this has been written, I will apologize ahead of time for the renovations going on at Tech's Stadium. They're in the midst of a $220 million renovation to one end of their stadium, and it's going to involve visitors' locker room and a football training facility and new end of the stadium, and it's fairly massive. And they started it about 6 months ago, and so much of the work is like the nuts and bolts and the underneath and all the plumbing and electrical and all that stuff. And so the stadium won't look great this year. It's going to be fully opened up next year, and I hate that this game is going to be in the midst of the renovation. But hey, short-term pain, long-term gain. I even think the Ducks are going to have to dress out in the parking lot in trailers because there is no visitors locker room or home locker room. So
really?
Absolutely. That's just part of the deal. Again, Texas Tech is trying to do everything they can to make it as normal and all that. It'll still be 55,000 capacity, but there's just going to be some issues like that where they've tried to deal with the underground and some of the tunnels and the locker rooms and all that they had to wipe out so they could rebuild it. It's just not enough time to get it all done, obviously, before the season starts.
Did not know that. Does that mean that there are going to be like extra tortillas provided in some of those areas? Yeah, we're gonna talk about tortillas. We have to get to that and the Red Raider schedule. And you all have to get over to eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride eBay. Trying to be as prepared for the show as possible at all points in time, Chris. That's what we call the second segment sip. And we can't have a single episode go by anymore without it, or else I'm not giving the best quality broadcast. Kind of like Texas Tech isn't giving the best quality facilities. Oh, that was so unwarranted. It was so unnecessary. And
I gave you the content. I gave you the two shot. Yeah, that's
you
right.
Did.
Yes.
You set me up a little bit for that one. I promise I am going to ask you about tortillas, but okay. I want to talk to the Oregon fans right now who maybe don't know a lot about Texas Tech. Probably haven't seen that many football games of theirs over the years, particularly in year one under Joey McGuire. What I saw from them in the games that I did see, I watched the bowl game against Ole Miss. I watched the game against Texas as well. I saw a team that looks pretty balanced offensively, wants to run the football, will use a good amount of RPO. But really, what stood out to me was the physicality in the front four. Especially in that bowl game against Ole Miss, I was pretty impressed with what they showed there. What's the identity of this Red Raiders team?
Yeah, I would tell you, I think that the identity and the brand is as much about being aggressive and going for it on fourth down as anything. We
know that very well.
And Texas Tech led the country in fourth down attempts last year, and I think actually was second or third in conversion rate on those. So, I think that their offense was okay last year. They averaged 34 points a game, but around here, it's probably like Oregon fans. Around here, people are spoiled. They're used to, you only scored 45 points today, guys. What are we doing? Sleep at the wheel, practicing in the middle of the week or what? But part of that was because you had three different starting quarterbacks due to injury. And I think that kind of, you're having to just kind of manage your way through that. It's semi-different offenses with each quarterback. So you had to maneuver your way through that. I don't think you were as fast as you needed to be because of a few of the injuries that you suffered. But I think you were solid. You were very balanced. I think that, you were very creative and you were very aggressive. And that's the key. I think they were like, you know what? Screw it. We're going for it on fourth down. Like, you've got to stop us 4 times. And to the point where they're going for it on their end of the field. I mean, it's analytics based.
You're speaking Dan Lanning's love language right now. I tell you, we were going for it on our own 35-yard line on more than one occasion last year.
And I'm on the sideline with a microphone in my hand going, what is going on? Like, this breaks every rule that you've ever, but this is what, and so, Oregon obviously does this, is what you're telling me.
It was a point of massive controversy last year, was going for it on our own side of the field with 90 seconds to go in a tie game against Washington at home, and our running back slipped and we didn't pick it up. Went for it when we were barely leading against Oregon State on our own side of the field, didn't pick it up. And Bo Nix made the wrong read, we didn't pick it up. But there were moments where it worked. Like the BYU game, for instance, we had 2 key fourth down conversions on our own half of the field. Had one or two against UCLA as well that were integral to helping us win those games comfortably, might I add. But those were standout moments a season ago. So it sounds like if the coaches who were both entering their second seasons, Joey McGuire for the Red Raiders, Dan Lanning for the Ducks, if they are both sticking to that philosophy, we might not see a lot of punts in this game on a 4th and 3 at your own 40-yard line.
No, not going to happen. It doesn't appear, but schematically, Zach Kitley, learned under Cliff Kingsbury, and I think they want to throw it a lot. But I think that, much like a lot of
that's the offensive coordinator, right?
Yes, Zach Kittley, as he came from Western Kentucky, and he was here for several years under Cliff, and was a GA and spent several years on staff here prior to him going out and doing his own thing. And then now he's come back, and his dad, ironically enough, is the track coach at Texas Tech, won a national championship a few years ago. But Zach wants to throw it a lot, but they want to be very balanced. I think he wants to have his quarterback run some. I mean, it's just kind of like the new age air raid. Everybody around here with Mike Leach was used to just, throwing it 90% of the time, barely running it. Most of these guys now, they want to be very balanced. They're going to be very creative. I think Zach really utilizes a tight end quite a bit. And then you guys know what the scheme is on defense as much as anybody, because Tim DeRuyter was obviously spent some time in Eugene. And this is it's a 3-4, 4-3, kind of all over the place kind of scheme. It comes off as very complicated, but they are very aggressive as well. And I think that he's done like Kayvon Thibodeau a few years ago. He had Tyree Wilson last year, who was the 7th pick in the draft. So he had Von Miller many, many years ago at Texas A&M. He always has a good way of putting somebody or plural in a position to really get after it and showcase them and rushing the passer. But this is a very aggressive defense, and they show you a variety of different looks. I think the trick is we want to show you certain things, but we're really not in that look. We want you to think we're in that look and all that stuff. But, there's a lot of hybrid type players in this deal, and that's what defense has become, especially in this league. You're basically rating your success with the coach that goes for it on fourth down as much as Joey and Zach do. You're going to get put in, on some short fields, but it's like, okay, do we hold them to a field goal attempt and instead of a touchdown? Did we put out the fire whenever we got put into a short yardage? How many takeaways do we have? I mean, all these small victories. And so I think you can't look at, okay, how many yards did we give up? Things like that. It's okay. Ultimately, it's about points, about turnovers, it's about some, stopping them on fourth down, which ultimately is a turnover as well. But I really like Tim. I think Tim is a very veteran coach, and I think it works perfectly with a young OC, because I think if you had a young DC, it's like you're going for it and you're putting my guys on the field and, at their own 25, right. Like, what are we doing? But Tim gets it, and he understands, hey, man, there's some payoffs here. It's not going to work on our favor all the time, but that's kind of the going for it on fourth down, aggressive on defense, balanced offense. I think that's kind of what you're looking at from an identity standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well articulated on that front. Going over to the offensive side of the ball before we wrap up with a conversation about the quarterback, the most important position that everybody loves hearing about, of course. When you look at this team offensively, do they take a lot of shots? Do they want to run the football? Do they want to be balanced? Are they going to throw the football a lot? Because, there certainly still is the brand of the Texas Tech air raid teams with Mike Leach, RIP, and all that sort of stuff. But when you think about this team, like when I say Oregon offensive identity, it's power run, heavy play action. And that's where, they thrived a year ago, was they ran the ball well and they used the play action passing game and Bo Nix's mobility to then take deep shots down the field. When you watch this Texas Tech offense and say, when they're at their best, they look like blank, what does that appear to you?
Well, it's everything you just said. Yeah. I mean, I think mobility with your quarterback, I think you absolutely want to run the football in between the tackles, and they do. They want to take some shots. They want to throw the ball down the field. I think that they wanted to actually do more of that this year than they did last year, because I think their personnel is set up a bit better to be able to do that. Their O-line is better this year, they feel like, going into the season. But I think, I don't know how much of this Oregon does, but they'll run tempo a lot too. They'll really get to going fast pace and trying to see how fast they can go, and they feel like that that is something that they've improved upon. Different coaches have different philosophy on their version of what fast is and how quickly we want to snap it and how many plays we want to try to run a game. And obviously the rules have prohibited some of that from you being able to with I guess the clock is now going to not stop on first downs, and I mean, there's some different things that have been changed.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. And so,
except the last 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarters.
Correct. Yes, that's right. That's right. So, but I would say though that you're talking the same language as that the Red Raiders would want to employ on offense. Maybe and then the tempo thing. I think what Zach is good at, though, that if this is what he learned from Cliff. If 1 week they need to be really heavy in one personnel group because they see a weakness on the opposition, that's what they will major in. So from week to week, it kind of depends on where they see the weakness or what they feel like they have an advantage of. 1 week, it may be, look, we're going to go fast. We don't think they can handle it. 1 week, we're going to test the corners down the field. We like our advantage there. 1 week, we're going to major in the tight end. 1 week, we're going to kind of slow this game down a little bit and play keep away and kind of limit possession. So he's really good at that, and that's why there's so much in what they do. So that's why it's hard for me to nail down an identity. But spread offense, up-tempo offense, that's going to be kind of the bread and butter, if you will.
All right, let's talk about that guy, that dude, that man that Oregon fans know pretty well. So for those of you who are new here or are brand new Oregon fans within the last 365 days perhaps, I'll bring you up to speed really, really quickly. Tyler Shough was a 4-star recruit coming out of Chandler, Arizona. He committed to the Ducks. He was behind Justin Herbert for a couple of years. He was the heir apparent. He took over during the COVID season, and by the end of the COVID season, he had essentially been benched for Anthony Brown. He transfers to Texas Tech and is going to be the starting quarterback, barring an injury in week 1 at Wyoming. He will be the starting quarterback that the Ducks will go up against. 2 questions for you, Chris. What has the Tyler Shough experience been like for the Red Raiders? Because from the outside, it looks like it's been successful and just unfortunately riddled with a couple of injuries. And what do you expect from him going into this season?
Yeah, I think that's really been the book on Tyler since he got here. It's kind of what could have been type thing, because when he's played, he's been great. He's 8-1 as a starter. Both of his injuries, one was in Austin, Texas. He's going into the end zone, scoring a touchdown, and gets hit, and it breaks his collarbone. I think last year in the Murray State game, he was about 20 yards downfield running, and he just didn't slide quick enough, and he got popped. And it was like it looked all too familiar, and so he's missed a lot of football here. When he's been here and available, it's been great. And I think that what I see with Tyler is that he's got measurables, which is why he was ranked so high out of high school. This is a legit 6'3", 6'4". I think he's up to about 235 pounds now. And he was as big a reason as anybody that you won those last 4 games last year. And I think that's why people are high on Tech and high on him and all that. The NFL folks that come through here feel like he's absolutely going to get an opportunity at the next level. It's just a matter of, can you stay healthy? Can you do it for a long period of time? And that's what he's got to prove. He knows it. Will they run him as much as they did last year? I don't know if you consciously kind of alter play calling, because some of what he's done is he'll just tuck it and go, and you don't want to take that away. He's just got to be a bit smarter at times and maybe not be such a competitor, take a few less yards, go out of bounds, whatever, so you can and he speaks very highly of at least in my conversations with him, of his time there. He just needed a new change of scenery, needed a new chance. And I think he's won the job here 3 different times now, okay, and with different coaching staffs and different offensive coordinators each time, as a matter of fact. And I think that's been a bit tricky. So he's really had to prove himself over and over and over again. Sonny Cumbie, who's now the offensive coordinator, the head coach at Louisiana Tech. David Yost, who is the offensive coordinator for, I think, Florida International. And then obviously with Zach Kittley, he had to win the job and prove to all 3 of those guys in 3 different years that he was the man, but he just, again, couldn't sustain it because of health. But I think the expectation is he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 Conference. And I think that he got some – votes for first place all conference, but I think it's hard to justify it when you just don't have the body of work. And I think that's really what people are looking to see. But this is a quarterback driven league, just like the Pac-12 is, man. I mean, it's not, you're not going to see the 85 Bears playing defense in any school in this league. You're not going to see, you'll see good running backs. But, again, if you have a legit signal caller that stays healthy and can win you some games when maybe you don't have it that day, you have a chance to win the league. If you don't, chances are you're going to be very average or maybe a little bit better than that, but it's not going to be good enough to win the league. And I think that Tyler Shough has a chance to be that. But again, we haven't seen it yet here. So that's it's on him to prove that.
Yeah, I think it'll be a test of Oregon's defense. As I've talked about, it'll be a test for Oregon's team overall to go down to Lubbock and walk out with a win. But it'll be a test of their defense, which needs to improve from what they were a season ago. If Tyler Shough comes out and he goes for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, I won't feel supremely confident. I won't feel great. But if we come out and, win the game and hold them to 24 points and Shough is throwing for 220 yards, 2 picks, and 2 touchdowns, then I feel better about the Ducks. The last thing that I want to ask you about on today's show, Chris, and thanks again for coming on. I know Oregon fans will very much appreciate your insight here, is I've heard a lot over the last month or so about tortillas. Now, my understanding is that there is some cultural tradition surrounding Texas Tech football and tortillas. So would you care to fill in all of the Oregon fans listening to or watching this that plan to go to the game? What exactly to expect should they make the venture down to Lubbock, which has a great golf course in it, by the way, at the Texas Tech golf course. Very, very fun. I recommend it.
The Rawls course.
Yep.
You bring your driver because it's a long one. So I don't remember exactly the year. This is I think a mid to early 90s tradition that got started. Look, your entire campus is uniform in that it's the Spanish Renaissance brick work and very it all flows, it all looks the same, it's very unique, and it's really a pretty campus, and it's a huge campus. Actually, it covers a ton of space, and this is there's the Hispanic community in Lubbock and in West Texas and all that is very prevalent as well. But somebody started doing this. I think it was like I said, like in the mid to early 90s. It's like when kickoff and Raider Red, shoots the guns off and everything like that. And everybody just started throwing tortillas in the air. They freeze them. They put a hole in them and try to,
they're frozen tortillas. They're not throwing flappy ones around.
Yeah. Sometimes they just because they'll fly further.
Corn or flour?
These are always flour. Yeah,
always
absolutely.
Flour. Okay.
And I love me some corn tortillas now. So I would tell you that
I'm a corn on a burrito. I want flour, but on a taco, like a real authentic taco, give me corn all day.
Absolutely. Yeah, like street style tacos.
Yeah,
you want corn
that's
tortillas.
Correct.
But officials have had to, hey, PA announcer, you need to make an announcement when you got to get this stuff off the field, or they do it at basketball games and all that stuff. But they'll come get them all cleaned up, and it's just a kickoff thing. But there's a lot of reasons why some have different takes on it than others on what the reasoning is. I don't know if there's like an official stance from the university, but it's been around for a while. It's fun. It means no harm, but that's just kind of what they do, and it's mainly on the east side of the stadium, which is where the students are. So typically that's where most of the tortillas come flying from. But yeah, it's fairly common to see somebody just bringing a pack of tortillas into the game, and like it's just for kickoff, and you just throw them up in the air, and the end. I mean, it's like I'm having to learn about BYU, and they have the was it like the maple bar thingy, like the something tail.
They do.
Yeah, there's some famous thing in Provo that they serve at their games. I mean, I'm trying to learn all these new schools.
I love a good maple bar.
Yeah. So anyway, there's all kinds of things going on at some of these stadiums, but that's why we love college football so much. You'll have to teach me about, going to Eugene next year, kind of where to
absolutely
where to eat,
you
where to
you
go,
will get
all that stuff.
At that point in time, you will get a full explanation of the origin of and how to properly participate in should you choose the greatest experience in college football, and that is Shout up in Eugene at Austin. But this year, on September 9th, we're going to have pistols flying in the air. We're going to have fireworks on the football field. We're going to have tortillas on the football field as well. Chris Level will be there at the ground level on game day on the radio, also host of Locked On, or co-host of Locked On Texas Tech. Chris, we appreciate it so very, very much. Thank you.
Spencer, I appreciate the time. Appreciate it. Good luck. Have a good season. You need me for anything else, man, holler. But keep hope alive, and we'll be up in your neck of the woods next year.
You as well. We'll have to reconvene once it gets closer to the game to talk about all the details of that and whatnot. But until then, I appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, as always, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.